Today we have on the show Dr. Zakiyyah Raheem, adjunct professor, community activist, lecturer, author, and songwriter. She has written several books along with songs, one of which went on to achieve certified gold. She's agreed to sit down with us today to have a conversation I'm sure you'll enjoy. Thank you for joining us on the next step of this journey. It's The Ordinary Show. Dr. Rahim is a noted author and lecturer that has written on such wide-ranging subject matter, from the practice of social work under welfare reform to some of the dynamics of the hip-hop industry, to the story of an unjustly accused boxer. In addition to lecturing, book writing, grant writing, and songwriting, of which she's written 29 songs, she has been honored with several awards, amongst which has been the Outstanding Georgia Citizen Award, Georgia Goodwill Ambassador, given by the Secretary of the State of Georgia. She has also been bestowed with the Female Executive in the Entertainment Industry Award. We have with us today Dr. Zakiyyah Raheem. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
For our viewers on The Ordinary Show, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I came from a very large family of 13 children. Mm-hmm. I am the fourth born, third living, and came up in a family with parents who had education was very important to them.
Right.
That was the key to our success in the world. And so through them, I was able to see how important it was, because though they raised their children and worked and so forth, they too went to school. Mm-hmm. My mother went to school. In fact, a month before she passed away, she finished high school.
Okay.
My dad took a correspondence course in the mail on electronics. And so I was able to see and feel that impact just being in the home with them, watching them work. So, strong work ethics were key in our family. Okay. And so, I think it set the tone for me as an adult. I go all the way through all the way through school, I was an honor student. Okay. And so I was expected to do all these great things. However, like many young ladies in this society, I ended up a teen parent.
Okay.
But I had very supportive parents. It was a time when it was not the thing to do. You just don't go have babies. It's not good. But my parents helped me through that. And through that, I found my way because they had laid a strong foundation for me. So I was able to be successful in raising my family and all the other things that I was able to do.
Let me ask you this. You do so many things. I mean, you write songs, you write books, you lecture, you've been a professor. What is your passion? What is that which
to this day, I would really like to name one thing, but I don't have any one thing. We have this saying where people say that they're jacks of many trades and masters of none. But I think I've mastered all the trades that I've been interested in. I really do,
right.
Because I enjoy the things that I do. So I think the passion comes from putting myself into whatever it is I choose to do. I see it all the way through, and I want to do the best job I can. So that would be the passion for me.
What drives you the most?
Excelling.
Okay.
I like to achieve. I'm a high achiever. And if I set a goal and set a path for that, I have to finish that. I don't do well if I don't finish it. I always feel like I need to get back to that.
One of the things I was interested in doing the research is that, certain books or certain artists go to certain places to find inspiration, to find muse. How do you approach the creative process?
Quiet. I believe that late at night, that's a quiet time. I believe that's when God speaks to me, because that's when I get my thoughts. And I could be lying in bed and maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I get these ideas and I have to get up and do something with it. So it's a quiet time, because I found that if I don't do it at that time, by daylight, I've forgotten what it is. The gift is gone. So I'll get up and go to my computer and start writing. At least I want to lay the major thoughts down.
Right.
Then when I get up, I just bounce off of those major thoughts.
Let me ask you this, and just to change the subject matter just a little bit, we'll get back to that,
Okay.
but just to change the subject back to this. And I'm going to ask you to put on your sort of professorial hat, so to speak.
Okay.
Of recent, we've had, of course, we've experienced the deaths of 2 young children under neglected,
Right. Family.
neglectful parents. What are the gaps,
Well-
as you see in this system, that allows that to happen?
Well, you know what? I think everything starts with the family. And so many families have not gotten that basic training and understanding. They don't even know who they are. So it's very difficult to raise a family and take charge of another mind when you don't even have a clue who you are. So those children are being parented by people who haven't had those experiences. So they haven't been able to pass on those parental experiences that they need. I can't blame the system, except to say that once in the system, then I think they need to have some kind of clear direction about how they're going to help the people that they are there and committed to serve.
Well, now, I will have to say that it did prompt a change in defects,
Right,
in the
that's
head
what
of
I was about to
defects.
say, yeah.
And so talk to us a little bit about, we're not blaming defects, but
Right.
what do you see as the things that can be
policies, policies.
Okay.
Poor policies. And that's the problem for everyone in the trenches. They can't implement any kind of plan if the policies are not well written and well thought out and realistic. They have to be realistic. And so many people get into positions, have no clue about how to develop policies. Policies come from a need, recognizing what a community has a need for.
Right.
And then developing policies directly linked to that need, but realistic policies. And that's the gap that I saw. That was one of the reasons I was so passionate about getting my doctorate
Correct.
in social policy,
Right.
because I found that it's hard to carry out a policy that's not well written. You know, who do you go to with that? So I think it starts back with our legislators, and many times they have no clue because legislators are voted on by the people. They might put somebody into office that have no clue about how to set up programs or what to put in place for professional people in that industry to carry out, to take care of those children, for example, in DFACs.
Let me ask you though, bringing that to bear, this is the Ordinary Show, and when we see things like that, ordinary people become compassionate, impassioned about what they could do. What, we have policy and we do have the legislative process.
Exactly.
What can me as an ordinary person?
Well, one, you can start to gather people with the same interests that you have.
Okay.
That's why we have representatives, because they act on the things that we take to the table. If we take nothing to the table, they don't have anything to work with. So if you see these kinds of things, a lot of abuse or whatever the issues may be, you have representatives for your area. You should then gather people together with the same thought, organize around that issue, and take it to those who actually write legislative policies.
Before we go to commercial break, I'm interested, I remember the change in
Okay.
welfare reform.
Okay.
And just to touch base on a little bit, the importance, some of the unsung heroes in our community are social workers.
Right.
Because I know them very
Absolutely.
personally. And they are some of the frontline people in our
Absolutely.
battle to help our youth and maintain our youth. Give us an understanding of what social work was like before welfare reform and what happened to it after welfare reform.
Well, it's not a coincidence that people in Cobb County can only receive services in Cobb County versus services in Fulton County or elsewhere. The Elizabethan Poor Laws of 1600, all those things were put in place where everyone was responsible for people in their own particular area, and that's where those things came from.
Correct.
Residential requirements. So it was the rudiments of what we now see.
Okay.
And it started back then. Let's take care of our people. And so if you live in this county, that's where the services are given, and you're showing proof that you live in those counties. It started way back then.
Correct.
And so all we've done is build on that. I think the major impact that we had on those policies came with the stock market
Right.
crash
Right.
of 1929.
Okay.
When we had to put the New Deal, President came in, Roosevelt,
Exactly.
spent 100 days meeting and talking with all of the
Right.
important folks in the country and coming up with a plan so that we would never suffer like this anymore. That's where Social Security came in 1935. That's where FHA housing. You want
Many
provide
programs.
every
I can
single
remember
thing.
Upward Bound coming out of that program.
Because you had people
Right.
standing in lines, long lines
Right.
to, soup lines. So we wanted to put that in place so nothing else happened. So what has happened is that every so often when another need comes up in the society, then another major act comes into place. 1988, when there was just some bits and fringes of how to, now we got to look at responsibility.
Correct.
You know, how do families take on being responsible? How do we provide services to these families now? So what we did, we went from giving people things. The Welfare Reform Act changed that. Now we're taking people off of welfare. Before, welfare, first of all, was never put in place for people to make a permanent life off of it. It was only for temporary help. People institutionalized that by never getting off and having babies. Before that baby gets old enough, then there's another child coming, so now we're serving that one. And so it just kept building and building. And so we had to find a way, you know, to ease people off by providing some skills for work, all of the basic things that they needed. We had a demonstration project with Clark Atlanta University. I was hired to answer the university's mission on service. So I physically established the physical infrastructure called PPC, Partners in a Planned Community.
Right.
And then from there, the whole thing was I created that along with all of the programs, had to develop the administrative infrastructure, then the programmatic infrastructure and so forth. This demonstration project came in 1996, the 1994, I'm sorry. Just before the 1996 responsibility. I can't remember all my terms right now, a little bit, but because it's so much. and so we were able to demonstrate through that project, a 3-year project, by getting funding from private foundations to support this agency and being able to get the place itself from the housing authority. We thought, well, you know, you start at home first. And so the public housing is right around Clark Atlanta University. So this is why we chose to work with the public housing residents. We did a collaborative.
Many of which has been torn down now.
But it was always the plan.
Right.
They were only supposed to be in them for 50 years and then turned back over to the universities in that area. And so we began our collaborative relationship with the Atlanta Housing Authority. And it was a great experience. And so moving from all of that into where I became the principal investigator for the welfare reform research. I wrote the proposal for the School of Social Work, and we were able to get $2 million to participate in that study. It was a 3-year study, which involved, we would only HBCU at the table in the full capacity with Georgia State, University of Georgia. Fort Valley was a subcontract under them and so forth. But we took part in that, which was really great because we were actually part of we were the demonstration. Then here we come along a few years later and we become the one who actually work with trying to find out, did it work?
That's great. We're going to take a short commercial break at this point. Please come back, join us. You see, next we're going to go into some of her literary works. Come back to The Ordinary Show. Family, welcome back to The Ordinary Show. Dr. Raheem, one of the things that I found very interesting is your work in trying to improve not only high-risk youth, but one of the most solid things is the parenting skills of high-risk youth.
Yes.
Tell us about your work in that area.
Well, we knew that we couldn't get very far with children if we didn't involve parents. And so the Fordham University was one of our partners, and so they actually provided us money through the DeWitt Foundation to cover parent and children, programming for parents. And what we did is we established a parent center so that the parents in the community, any parents, even if they were outside of the community and knew about it, wanted to come to the center to discuss with other parents what their own parental issues were. How do they help their children be successful? And then we realized that through that, we wanted to get the schools involved because parents were not going to the schools is one of the things that we found out. And if they did, it was a conflict. So what we wanted was to be able to look in at how what issues did the principal have? How do we help the principal? How do we help the parents? How do we bring these two groups together? So we started, we put together a teacher social worker team. First of all, we developed a course, myself and a professor from the School of Education. And we team taught this course on parent education. Once we did that, at the end of the course, we paired the teacher and the social worker together and assigned them to 2 different middle schools. And in that, they went with different issues. One had a problem of attendance. And so the principal said, how do we get the kids there?
You know, you really took the words right out of my mouth. Is that, especially in parental involvement, it can sometimes be difficult to get them involved. You know, we've had the history of the PTA thing and whatnot. What methodology did you guys go with, and how did that go?
Well, what we decided to do in doing that, to marry that and develop that relationship, we said, well, you know what, let's find things that everybody likes and have in common. So we started sponsoring things like spaghetti dinners. And so we'd have the parents come on campus to the school and have dinner with the staff. And then we went beyond that and we had competitive basketball. So the parents would play against the teachers and won. And so they were beginning to feel better about the school turf because they felt like they were inadequate to come on the campus. And when they did, it was confrontational. They wanted to get on the teacher about something. But we were able to help them help their children. We taught them conflict resolution because we were teaching it to the children. So if we're going to teach the child how to find other ways to solve problems besides boxing, then we had to go and talk to parents about it. We had to teach them conflict resolution to cut down, decrease the incidence of domestic violence in the home because the child is getting something right here and on the other end, the parents are still fighting. So we worked with them. Not only did we do that, we also offered the parents adult literacy. So we developed reading programs for the parents, and I can't think of her name right now, but a noted professor out of California, a writer, publisher, author. We would have her come to the campus, and we'd have a group of parents sit, they would sit at her feet while she would read stories to them. So, you have to hear sometimes yourself read. You should have them read because that's another level of learning taking place when you read aloud. So they would sometimes read, they would have a book to take home to read that book. So they now are engaging at another level so they can work with their children. So you have to involve that parent. You're not going to get anywhere without it.
Outstanding. And you answered my question. I guess to get them participated was with the spaghetti dinner. I know any of our viewers watching would have the same thing, and I think that's great. Not to switch, but you have written this book, Still Standing, the Bernie Hurd Jr. story. Just for some of our viewers, it's certainly likened to, if you're familiar with the hurricane. Tell us how you came about Benny Hurd. Well, let our viewers know who Benny Hurd is, what happened.
Well, Benny Hurd, I actually met him through my son. My son is an entertainer, a rapper, and Benny Hurd was his security for one of his shows, and they developed a friendship. And because of that, Benny was talking about his life to my son. My son told him, say, well, my mother writes. And at that point, he wanted to meet me. So we did meet, long story short, and talked about it and talked about his life. I was almost in tears just listening to him tell me about it. And he asked if I would write his story. I said, I would write your story. I said, I'll do it as a biographer. I don't do ghostwriting. I don't do any of that. If I write, I have to write as your biographer. He said, I just want my story told. Because he disappeared off the national scene. All of a sudden, he was not there anymore. He was a part of the 1984 boxing trial team.
I was just about to tell our audience that.
1984. And so that he was there with Evander Holyfield was on the team. Mike Tyson was on the team. Terrell Biggs, and there were others. The whole makeup of the team. So, but they were going around, traveling around the world, with this trial, and he actually, had reached a point to become a member of the team, but just before the opening of the Olympic season, he injured his fist and had to have surgery. So in comes Evander Holyfield. So he can thank Benny Hurd, because that's how he got to be on the team, and people get to know all about him.
Interesting.
So he had to watch it from his hospital bed, watch the game as it went on. And so after this, he took a year, he became pro. He decided to go pro. And in going pro, like some men do, he thought that every woman was available to him. Every vice you could think of was available. He drank, he did all the stuff, but he boxed.
Okay.
Never failed to train. He is like a 20-some-year-old man, and he's in his 50s. That's how he took care of himself. But the long story short, he was a little bit hard-headed, and he learned a lot of things along the way, but he was a womanizer. He drank, he gambled, he was all that. And so he took a short trip home, took some time off and went home after some training, took a little break. While he was home, he had a best friend that he liked to be with. He'd been knowing this family for a long time, and but had been drinking all that day. So they ended up gambling. This was the second big time gambling. Something that happened the first time, where there were some threats from this particular boy's brother about him because they thought he had cheated in the first game. So when the second game came along, by this time he had armed himself with a gun, because everybody was fearful of this gentleman's brother. They called the Wins. Their last name were Win, and so while they were going to the table to do this gambling, someone said to him, "He's got a gun on him." Told him where the guy had the gun, and so at that point, Benny said he got really, really scared, because the guy was older and he was bad and he had already been to prison and blah blah blah. So he had a gun on him. So Benny is a show-off, still a show-off, okay? So he gets up with his gun and kind of letting the guy know that he was not going to put any fear in him today, blah, blah, blah. And so at the same time, Raymond, which is the victim, Raymond Wynn, was sitting next to Benny. They were like positioned, I'm here, Raymond's brother was here, and Raymond was standing next to him. So when Benny got up, Raymond thought he was going to really shoot his brother, but he wasn't going to shoot his brother. He was just trying to scare him. And so in trying to tussle with the gun went off, and Raymond was shot in the head. Immediately, Benny ran down to the police station, which was only about 2 blocks from where they were, this cafe. It's a town with about 4,700 people. That's how small it was. And so when he went down there, the short story is they kept him down there, interviewing him and talking, because only 2 police cars were away. They had not come back. But I interviewed the owner of the restaurant, of the cafe, and he told me that it was an accident, that Benny didn't try to shoot this guy. But they jailed him and kept him in jail 46 days from the time they jailed him to the time they had a trial. They had his trial in 46 days. How do you do that, for murder? But this guy, soon after he was shot, it took 15 minutes for an ambulance to get there. When they got there, you know what happened? The ambulance drives on down about 2 blocks from the cafe, and it breaks down right in front of the jail. This man with a gunshot to his head sat in this ambulance for 2 hours, just sitting there waiting on another emergency vehicle to come and get him and take him to the hospital. So by the time he gets there, he's DOA.
Well, let me ask you, did any of this come up in the trial? Tell us about the trial.
Okay, the trial was, it was so short. It was really a sad thing. I interviewed Benny's mother, who had no clue for all of the years Benny was locked up, didn't have a clue what really happened. So I was able to tell her through writing his story, and she's passed now. And so she sent his brother and stepfather to the trial. Benny ended up with a less competent attorney, because the one who could have gotten him off wanted $10,000. They didn't have $10,000. They got this man for $3,000. They went to the bank, got The bank agreed to give them $3,000, but they only would give them $1,000 at a time. That's how they wanted to control them. And so they got what they paid for, no real representation. So they had the trial. During the course of the trial, one-day trial, the attorney took a break. Everybody took a little break. While they were gone on the break, by the time the attorney got back, the jury had already come back. They spent 13 minutes. They made a decision to find him guilty in 13 minutes.
Wow. One
black woman on a retired teacher. Everybody else were, you know, I don't know if I should be telling all this. I want them to buy my book. Everybody else on the jury were white. And so many say they took him and almost immediately sent him to prison, where there were a lot of people in the jail waiting to go to prison. They sent him off right away. And they gave him a life sentence, by the way.
Okay.
And he served 20 years.
On the other side, how did it come out?
Well, I think he came out all right. He said that by the time they came to him, so many people tried to get him out. Evander Holyfield, some politicians, different ones. It didn't work. He actually served 20 years. So many things happened to him. And, you know, he didn't have to fight and all that kind of stuff.
He has a picture back here with Evander Holyfield.
Yeah, they're still friends. They're still friends. But nobody got him out, could get him out. And so when they did come to him to tell him that he was going home, he said it was like a dream. He couldn't even believe it. He said he just broke down crying. And they took him because he had actually served 20 years. They took him to the transitional center and so on. But once out, here's the beautiful thing. He had 3 fights. And these men were in their 20s. And he knocked out the first one in 46 seconds, the second one in 56 seconds, the third one in a little bit over a minute. He was actually nominated to Georgia's Sports Hall of Fame as the comeback boxer of the year.
Interesting.
That's what he got when he came out, 2007.
It really is a great book. It's a great read.
And now he's teaching boxing to those that want to go into boxing, professional boxing, and those who want to become a part of the Olympics. He teaches them. So that's what he's doing with his life now.
It's an incredible story, and Ordinary Family, you'll love it. When we come back, we're going to have a little fun. Dr. Raheem is somewhat of a hip hopper, and so when we come back, we'll see if she can show us a little jig or two. Join us in. Family, welcome back. Listen, as a young man in college, I used to dance in the club to this song called "The Most Beautiful Girl in the World" by this rapper named Rahim the Dream. And just so happened Dr. Zakiyyah is the mother of Rahim the Dream, the rapper.
Absolutely.
You know, as I was thinking that there was this gap, we've talked about social work and hip hop on the other side, but as I did the research, the gap really isn't all that big.
No, it's not.
Bridge it for us.
Well, one, my son saw the work I had done for Clark Atlanta University, how I was able to take that work to an international level because I started training educators from Hungary and Brazil. And so our reach had gone that far to give them, I trained them on our model of social work, how to work with families and so forth. And so with that, having done that, my son was so impressed because of the training I had done around the country as well. Grantors were asking me to train their new grantees on what they needed to do with as a new grantee. And so, but anyway, I went to Tight to Death Records at that time. That's what it was called, Tight to Death Records. He asked me to come and take on the responsibilities of his business over business affairs. So he named me VP. And so with that, I've been able to see from the top to the bottom, all the way across, artist development, the whole 9. I did everything, did the day-to-day operations. And so after having worked with him since 1997, I said, well, you know what? I think I want to get into the creative side. I'm still on the other side now. The creative side was writing. And so I decided at that point, that shocked him, that I was able to write the kind of music that I wrote. He had no idea. But I told him long before he was born, I used to be a singer early on in my life, but we had also owned a record shop. And so we've always had music as the central part of our life. So his becoming an artist was not anything unexpected.
Now, you know, at one point, hip hop does have that other side to it, that
Yeah.
sort of stigma to it.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, when he told you that he wanted to be a rapper, were you all that agreeable with it?
No, I wasn't. But the reason I wasn't is because he did so well in high school. We were expecting him to go on and be an architect.
Okay, then.
He was supposed to. That was the plan for him.
Okay.
And so I just felt like somebody had robbed us of him, fulfilling the plan we had as a family. That one day you're going to get older. So what are you going to do if that's all it is? But as I learned about this business, there are so many different things you can do in this business.
Okay.
You could be 99 and still be in this business.
And many people don't know
Yeah.
that about the
Yeah.
hip hop
There's
industry.
so
It
many
is
things.
youth dominated, but there are certain aspects. of it.
It's phases, and you change over as you
Right.
start into age. Like the books was one way that he's doing it. We are doing live performances. We're doing so many other things in music that it doesn't just have to be you standing there with the rap. So you can. So that's the way it was.
Have you ever done any rapping yourself, Dr. Rahim?
I have not, but guess what? On his whole 28-year career,
Right.
he has allowed me to write a hook on his last single.
Okay.
So I have the hook on Money Cologne. I did.
Interesting. All right, before we go, in addition to Still Standing, Dr. Rahim has several other books, but you have to get this one. This is a very great read. Tell us where we can get some of your other books.
Well, this one for sure you can get Amazon.com. And of course, once you're there, then it goes to all of the booksellers. What would I say? What am I trying to say? The Martyr, the
Okay.
Brit. Yeah, you can go to their locations and buy it from bookstores.
Okay, then.
But online, you can go get this book. And this particular book, by the way, is in 6 languages. I did it in Italian, Spanish, French. What was the other one? German. And one of you just mentioned the other one. Can't think of right now, but it's in 6 languages.
Okay, then.
This book can be bought online in 6 languages. It's also in an ebook.
Okay,
So if you
then.
want to buy the ebook, you
Okay.
can get that. The other books that are in progress, I have 2 that's in progress. They're halfway through.
Okay.
One of them is called Social Work on the Practice of Social Work on the Welfare Reform.
Right.
It's a social policy book.
Okay.
And then I have one called The Little Red Spool Hill. It's about bullying,
Okay.
and bullying is everywhere. And actually, bullying starts in the family.
Okay.
In the family relationships, those dynamics.
Which
And
is
then
an
the
important dynamic.
Right.
Right.
Then you got the neighborhood bully. You have the bullies at work. You have bullies, cyberspace bullies. They are everywhere. So my book talks about all of the places where they are and recommendations on how to decrease the acts of bullying.
Okay.
And then I have this book that all over the world, everybody heard about Jodi Arias.
Yes, the
It's
Jodi
called The
Arias
Road
story.
Trip to Murder. I've already completed the book. I'm just waiting on them. They had a mistrial in the penalty phase.
Right.
So I'm waiting on them now to get back together in, I think it's September 8th. Their trial will resume.
Okay.
And when it resumes, then all I need now is to know whether or not she gets life or death. She's already been found guilty of first-degree
Correct,
murder.
correct.
So when that happens, my book will be released. Because, can't release it with that wondering what the outcome was.
I
Cliffhanger.
tell you, this has been great. We could go on and on, but
Yeah.
thank you so much for being on
Thank
the
you.
Ordinary Show today. Well, folks, that's our show this week. Until next week, this is the Ordinary Show, doing extraordinary things. I'll see you next week.
Supposed to be with me, living in luxury, to you, loving me.